All right, so you want to get to the bottom of a big story, huh? Cut through all that noise, figure out what's actually going on without getting lost in the weeds.
Exactly.
That's kind of our specialty here, right?
Right.
Getting right to the heart of the matter.
Absolutely.
Well, this time you guys sent in a fascinating collection of stuff all about Tesla as we're closing out March 2025.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, it's it's a wild ride. This
Yeah.
company is facing some pretty serious challenges.
Yeah, it's really something.
It really is. So, what we're going to do today is dig into all of this information about Tesla.
Okay.
We're going to look at public sentiment sales figures, the stock market, the whole 9 yards.
Yep.
And by the end of this, you should have a crystal clear picture of what's going on with Tesla right now.
Okay. Sounds good.
So let's kick things off with the obvious question. What's fueling this backlash against Tesla? What are the core reasons here?
Well, there's no single answer. It's a real tangle of interconnected things.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest threads that keeps popping up is Elon Musk's political involvement, particularly his role heading up the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, under President Trump.
Right. This wasn't just like a tweet or something.
No, not at all.
He actually took a pretty hands-on role in the government. So what exactly was he doing, and how did it spark such a negative reaction?
So as head of DOGE, Musk really went all in on streamlining federal operations.
Yeah.
This meant big layoffs within the civil service, major cuts to foreign aid, reduced support for veterans,
Oh.
even cutbacks on investigations into serious international issues like Russia's abduction of Ukrainian children.
Yeah, I remember reading about some of these decisions actually being reversed because there was so much public outcry.
That's right, the pushback was immense.
Yeah.
So some of those more drastic cuts did get walked back, but those initial decisions really left a mark.
Sure.
The main criticism was that Musk's obsession with efficiency seemed to come at the expense of social welfare and basic human needs.
Right. So not exactly aligning with that whole early Tesla image, right?
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head.
That forward-thinking, sustainable company with a pretty progressive customer base.
Yeah, that's a far cry from what we're seeing now.
It is. And speaking of that, it wasn't just his role in the government, right? The sources we're looking at also point to his growing alignment with some pretty right-wing viewpoints.
That's another big piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. So how did that play out, and how did it contribute to this backlash?
Well, you see, Musk's ties to Trump are becoming more and more obvious.
Uh-huh.
And then there's his open support for nationalist parties in Europe, like Germany's AfD,
Right.
which, have policies that many would say clash with what Tesla's early supporters believed in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not just words. He's actually showing up at events like that AfD rally right before the German snap election in February 2025.
Oh, yeah, that was huge.
Huge, huge backlash, especially in Europe. People were outraged.
Right, because that really solidified the shift in Tesla's image, didn't it?
It really, they went from being the cool, eco-conscious innovators
Yeah.
to being associated with some pretty divisive figures and ideologies.
Right. It's not about agreeing with every political opinion.
No.
It's about the brand becoming entangled with these ideologies that many people just find unacceptable.
Exactly. And that could be a real deal breaker for consumers.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about another aspect of this, the economic and competitive pressures Tesla's facing. How are those playing into the backlash?
Okay, so while all these ideological clashes are a big part of the story,
Yeah.
they're also happening against the backdrop of a really dynamic electric vehicle market.
Uh-huh.
You've got companies like BYD from China coming in with more affordable EVs.
Right. And really shaking things up.
They even outsold Tesla in Europe in February of 2025, according to the data.
Wow.
So now people who are maybe already put off by Tesla's political leanings, they've got these really attractive alternatives.
And Tesla hasn't really countered that with any budget-friendly options of their own, have they?
Not really, no.
Like, what about that midsize Model Y everyone was waiting for?
Yeah, that's been delayed again.
Still delayed.
So it's kind of a tough spot for Tesla, right? You've got people moving away because of the political stuff, and then you've got these great alternatives popping up.
It's like a perfect storm.
It really is.
And then, of course, there's Elon Musk himself.
Oh, yeah.
His very public persona can't really ignore that.
He's definitely a polarizing figure.
He's always been outspoken,
Yeah.
but now with his ownership of X and his very unfiltered way of communicating, it's like everything he does just amplifies this whole backlash.
That's true. And, in today's world, a CEO's personal brand is basically tied to the company's brand.
Right. It's like inseparable.
It is, and Musk is constantly in the news for something controversial.
Yeah, and that negativity just spills over onto Tesla.
It does. His statements are often seen as provocative, dismissive.
Yeah.
And the sources specifically mention his stance against diversity initiatives and social programs as being especially jarring.
Right, because that really clashes with the values of those early Tesla adopters.
Yeah, they saw Tesla as this progressive force, and now
Totally.
it's a completely different story.
Okay, so we've got a pretty good handle on the root causes here.
I think so.
Musk's political role, his alignment with certain right-wing ideas, those mounting competitive pressures, and his own very public and often polarizing personality.
Uh-huh.
Now, let's talk about how all of this is actually playing out in the real world.
Okay.
What are the tangible consequences of this backlash?
Well, the consequences are pretty far-reaching, and they're pretty serious.
Okay.
We're seeing organized protests, a rise in vandalism, even violence aimed at Tesla.
Wow.
We've got sales plummeting, and of course, the stock market is taking a hit.
So a lot to unpack there. Let's start with the protests.
Okay.
The reports mention a Tesla takedown movement that sounds pretty organized.
It's gaining momentum, and it involves some pretty big names like Alex Winter and Joan Donovan.
Right.
They organized this global day of action on March 29th, 2025, and that involved over 200 demonstrations worldwide.
Wow.
9 of those were in the UK.
Yeah.
Dozens across the US and Europe. It was a big deal.
So what were they trying to achieve with these protests?
Well, their main goal is to hit Tesla where it hurts financially.
Okay.
They want to hurt sales, drive down the stock price.
Makes sense.
They see it as a way to push back against Musk's political influence,
Sure.
and they're encouraging people to sell their Teslas and divest from the company.
Right.
It's like a form of ethical consumerism.
Interesting. And unfortunately, it hasn't stopped at peaceful protests, right?
Sadly, no. There have been some really disturbing cases of vandalism and even violence.
Yeah. The reports detail some pretty scary incidents.
They do. Tesla dealerships, service centers, charging stations have all been targeted.
Oh, wow.
We've seen reports of Molotov cocktails in Las Vegas, shots fired at a showroom in Oregon, charging stations set ablaze in Boston.
That's terrifying.
It is. It really shows how intense this backlash is getting.
Yeah, and it goes beyond just property damage, right?
Yeah. There have been reports of threats and harassment against individual Tesla owners.
Like what happened in Austin, Texas.
That's right. They found incendiary devices at a Tesla facility there just last month.
Wow.
And then there was that incident with the Cybertruck owners in New Orleans during Mardi Gras.
Oh, yeah.
They faced some pretty serious vandalism and harassment.
So it's clear that this anger is very real, and it's directed not just at the company,
Right.
but at the people who own Tesla vehicles, too.
Absolutely.
And this anger is translating into real action with those sales figures dropping significantly.
Oh, yeah. The numbers are pretty stark.
Like, what about in Europe?
In the EU, Tesla sales plunged 58% in the first 2 months of 2025.
That's huge.
It is, and Germany seems to be leading the charge there, especially after that whole AfD endorsement.
Right.
One poll found that a staggering 94% of Germans said they wouldn't even consider buying a Tesla anymore.
I mean, that's almost everyone.
It's a massive rejection.
And it's not just Europe, right?
No, China is seeing a big drop in sales too. Some reports say as much as 70% in some areas.
Wow. And what about here in the U.S.?
Even here, Tesla's home turf. They're seeing record numbers of trade-ins.
So people are actively getting rid of their Teslas.
They are. And that Yahoo News YouGov poll we talked about earlier, that found that 49% of Americans now have an unfavorable view of Tesla, and 2/3 wouldn't even drive one.
And the main reason they cited?
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. All of this has obviously had a big impact on Tesla's stock.
Yeah, the stock has taken a nosedive. It's lost almost half its value since December 2024.
Wow. And that includes wiping out those earlier gains.
Yes, even that bump they got after Trump bought a Tesla, that's all gone.
So investors are clearly worried.
They are. They're worried about Musk being distracted by politics. They're worried about the brand being tarnished. And they're worried about growth stalling with all these challenges.
And that all-hands meeting in March didn't really reassure anyone, did it?
There was a little jump in the stock price right after the meeting.
Sure.
But then it went right back down.
So it seems like investors are still waiting for some real signs of change.
Yeah, they want to see something concrete.
Yeah. Okay, so we've looked at the causes, the manifestations, the stock market. Now let's talk about the bigger picture, the real consequences for Tesla as a company.
All right, so one of the biggest consequences is this massive brand identity crisis they're facing.
Right, because their old image is basically gone.
It is. You know, that whole image of sustainability innovation being ahead of the curve, That's all been overshadowed by Elon Musk's antics and his political stances.
Right. It's like the brand has become synonymous with Musk himself.
It has, and right now, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, we even have stories like Lisa Wolgar in Newfoundland,
Oh, yeah.
who's facing hostility just because she drives a Tesla.
Yeah, even though her own political views are totally different from Musk's.
Yeah, and then you have those labels that are popping up like swastika and symbol of Trumpism.
Ouch, that's gotta hurt.
Yeah, it's a far cry from their eco-warrior days.
Yeah, it really is.
And this damage to the brand is hurting their ability to compete, especially with all those new affordable EVs on the market.
Absolutely. We talked about those Chinese companies like BYD.
Yeah, they're really giving Tesla a run for its money.
They are. And Tesla's lack of budget-friendly options is making it even harder for them to keep up.
Especially when you have this backlash pushing people towards companies that are seen as less political.
Right. It's a tough situation.
And it's not just consumers who are worried.
No, even longtime investors are getting nervous.
Like, what are they saying?
Some of them are publicly calling for Musk to step down from his role in the Trump administration.
Wow.
They're saying it's the only way to save the company.
And what about Robin Denholm, the Tesla chair?
She's been pretty quiet about all of this, and she's been selling off her stock.
Not a good sign.
Not really.
So it seems like Tesla is at a crossroads here.
They are.
But zooming out a bit, what are the broader implications of this backlash for the entire EV market?
Well, some analysts think this whole mess could actually benefit the wider EV market in the long run.
How so?
Well, it's like a cautionary tale.
Okay.
It shows what can happen when a brand becomes too closely tied to a polarizing figure. So it might encourage other EV companies to be more careful about their messaging
Okay.
and to try to appeal to a broader audience.
So less about politics, more about the cars themselves.
Exactly, and that could lead to a more diverse and maybe more stable EV market in the future.
Interesting. So even though Tesla's in a tough spot,
Yeah,
this could actually lead to good things for the EV market as a whole.
that's one way to look at it.
But for Tesla itself, things are looking pretty grim unless they can figure out how to separate themselves from Musk's image.
And that's a tall order.
It really is. And this whole situation really highlights a much bigger trend, doesn't it?
It does.
This growing trend of politicized consumption,
Yeah,
where what we buy becomes a reflection of our values and beliefs.
absolutely. And Tesla has become a lightning rod for all of this.
Because of Musk's very public role in politics and his ownership of those influential platforms like Tesla and X.
It's like he's turned Tesla into a symbol for a lot of people's frustrations.
Right, and even those attempts by Trump and his allies to support Tesla haven't really helped.
No, because the underlying issues are much deeper than just politics.
So to sum it all up, it's clear that Tesla is facing a massive multi-layered backlash as of March 2025.
Yeah.
It's not just one thing. It's a combination of Musk's political activities, his divisive personality, and the growing competition in the EV market. And all of this is having a very real impact on their image, their sales, and their stock value.
It's a complex and rapidly changing situation for sure.
And it really shows how closely a company's identity is tied to its leadership in today's world.
Yeah, and Tesla is a prime example of both the potential benefits and the serious risks of brands taking strong political stances.
So here's something to think about. Given how intertwined companies and their leaders are now, what does the Tesla situation tell us about the future of this whole politicized consumption trend? How are brands going to navigate this increasingly tricky landscape where what we buy is so often connected to our beliefs? And what does it all mean for the future of the market and the way we make our purchasing decisions?
It's definitely something worth pondering.
It is food for thought, for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks for diving into this with me.
My pleasure.
All right, until next time, stay curious, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.